Friends, hello. This is episode 557 of the Juicebox Podcast. On today's episode of the Juicebox Podcast, I'm speaking with Patrick, who is a young man that lives with type 1 diabetes. It also lives with him. He has diabetes. He's diabetic. Say it any way you want. Patrick's here. He's got T1. And we're going to have a really great conversation that you're going to adore. While you're listening, please remember that nothing you hear on the Juicebox Podcast should be considered advice, medical or otherwise. Always consult a physician before making any changes to your healthcare plan or becoming bold with insulin. Don't forget to head over to the T1D Exchange and fill out their survey. That's right. If you're a U.S. resident who has type 1 or a U.S. resident who cares for someone with type 1, in under 10 minutes, you can answer a few simple questions that will incredibly, amazingly, immaculately benefit people living with type 1 diabetes. And it'll support the podcast. T1dexchange.org/juicebox. Trying to get to 2,000 surveys by the end of Diabetes Awareness Month. This show is sponsored today by the glucagon that my daughter carries, Gvoke HypoPen. Find out more at gvokeglucagon.com/juicebox. The episode is also sponsored by Touched by Type 1. You can find out more about them at touchedbytype1.org. Touched by Type 1 has just put tickets on sale for their annual Dancing for Diabetes show. It's on November 13th this year at the Walt Disney Theater in Orlando, Florida. Go to touchedbytype1.org to get your tickets to Dancing for Diabetes. Dancing for Diabetes is a powerful and exceptionally entertaining dance showcase. It features 300 nationally recognized and award-winning dancers in one unforgettable evening. Look what I did there. I was like, unforgettable. Look, you don't need me to do this. Touchedbytype1.org. Click on Dancing for Diabetes. You'll get all the information you need.
Yeah, how are you doing?
I'm all right. It's spring break here for my daughter, so
oh wow,
it's a weird time. My wife was like, "Why are you recording this week?" I said, "I don't get spring break." I was like,
yeah, you're doing. How many episodes are you into this now?
460-ish around
there.
Oh
my goodness.
Yeah, you'll probably be. My God, you'll probably be 520 when it comes out eventually. So.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. So you're working hard then.
I am. I just don't want to, I want to treat the podcast like it's a podcast, not like it's a thing, a diabetes thing. I don't know if that makes sense or not, but you know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, no, I like it. And are you on the East Coast or West Coast?
No, I'm in New Jersey. You're out west,
New
though,
Jersey,
right?
Okay. Yeah, I'm out west, so I'm up bright and early, 6 a.m.
That's the thing that I thought when I saw the booking, I was like, I think that's really early for him. So thank you. I appreciate you doing that.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, you're busy, like booked up too, which is amazing.
It's hard to get on the show at this point. I had to do one for somebody that, was kind of like time sensitive. And they're like, well, when can we do it? And I said, July. and she's like, no, we need it sooner. And I was like, well, there's one day a week that I edit and I don't record. I guess I could do it that day. And, so I found myself doing that, but yeah, it's good. Listen,
wow.
That's nothing to complain about.
Yeah. Wow. And so you just do this with just, any diabetic who kind of wants to get on the show, or?
I've turned some people down, but
yeah,
not many. I think that there's something about the desire to do the show that brings out a certain kind of person.
Oh, I see. I like it. Yeah.
So there's a vetting process that happens without me being involved. And then the next part of the vetting process is that it takes so long after you put down a date to record. So basically I sit here 5 minutes before the recording time. And if you're here, I assume you really want to do this.
Yes. Oh, that makes sense.
You know
I
what
like
mean?
it.
Yeah. So just try to stay loose like that. Anyway, you sound terrific. You're recording well. That's fantastic. What you just do is introduce yourself any way you want to be known. Just meaning you don't need to use your last name, or, if you end up bringing up a friend or a sibling or something, you don't have to say their name. You could say my brother, or that kind of stuff.
Okay.
But other than that, you introduce yourself, and then we'll just get started.
Okay. And then we'll just go from there.
I'll ask a question, you'll answer the question, and that'll happen over and over again until we're done.
Okay. I like it. All right. Let me know when you're ready.
At your leisure.
Okay. Well, hello. My name's Patrick. I'm from Sacramento, California, and I have type 1 diabetes.
Patrick.
And I never get to say that.
Why not?
I never start off like that. I never, that's not my go-to, like, hey, this is who I am. But I like to say it's a new thing.
That's interesting. I mean, it makes sense, right? You don't wander up to new people and you're like, hey, I've got diabetes. Also, crazy booger came out of my left nostril this morning.
Yeah, so I like hearing that for the first time for sure.
Did you like saying it?
I think that it's something interesting about who I am and what I've had to deal with most of my life. So I do like telling people. I think a lot of people think that I could be embarrassed by it, so they don't really try to bring it up ever. But I like talking to people about it, so I do like saying it.
Nice. Are you embarrassed by it, or is it just something you think people around you feel?
No, yeah, I think some people could kind of tiptoe around it or beat around the bush about it. So I'm not embarrassed about it. I love talking about it. So it's not bad.
Nice. That's excellent. All right. So you're 20. Are you 24 now?
I am 25.
Oh,
yes.
That's something we were talking about before we started recording, is that it takes for a long time to get on the show. You were 24 when you sent the email.
I didn't even realize that. Yeah, it took a couple months for sure. And then I got a little promotion. So then we had to move it back even further, but I'm glad I'm on here.
No, yeah, I am too. And I'm realizing now that I'm only one clerical error away from putting this up while you're 26. So I just put up a show the other day. I had to write the person that was on it to apologize. And I had like a few files on my computer that got redated somehow. And I don't know if I opened them and that changed the date on them, and then they moved around in this folder that I have of recorded material that needs to, go through the editing process. And so they slid way up. So I put out an episode yesterday that I think I recorded like 18 months before that. And
my goodness.
And it was really good and I enjoyed it. And so I definitely wanted to put it up, and I wrote the person, I'm like, I am so sorry. This is not a judgment of what you did on the podcast. I just got messed up. And so anyway, we're just a couple of mistakes shy of you having 2 kids when this podcast airs.
Well, I can't wait for that. That'll be something to look forward to in a couple of years. So it's not bad.
Give you a little something extra. So how old were you when you were diagnosed?
I was 16. So right in the middle of high school, which is a crazy, I think it's a crazy time to get it, just because you're, in your youth, but also kind of growing into that adulthood stage, and your whole life kind of just changes in a weekend. Yeah. So
where were you in the progression of your maturity? And I mean that by saying that for parents who are listening, I think a lot of parents know that when your kids are that age, your basic goal then is to stave off any of the things that you don't hope that they do for as long as possible, right? Like you're like, I wonder how long I can keep this kid from having sex and drinking or doing drugs. Like, this is what I'm trying for, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And I had actually was in the middle of a basketball season. And that's when the doctors think that I somehow got it. And since I was in my honeymoon stage, I couldn't tell when I was playing basketball. And right when it ended is when I just went straight, losing 20 pounds, just super sick all the time, and peeing a lot. And so I got it right after basketball season. I remember it because we were in the playoffs and I couldn't even play. I was just so sick. So it was right then, right when a dance. Have you ever heard of like Morph or Gala or anything like that, where the girl asks the guy?
Mm-hmm.
So I got it a couple days before that, after a girl had asked me with a buttload of Almond Joys. I came back 2 days later after she had asked me with Almond Joys, and everyone in school thought she gave me diabetes.
Okay. That was the vibe. That was the vibe going around school.
Yeah, they didn't know how diabetes. I mean, I didn't even know how diabetes worked. So that was kind of the funny story, was that a girl gave me diabetes by asking me to Gala. So
I have to tell you, I think if Almond Joy could give you diabetes in 2 days, we'd all know about that.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I've heard no one likes Almond Joys. I've heard that. I mean, I'll eat them all day long.
Patrick, I'm just saying, my imagination tells me if that was true, that at the end of every news broadcast on everything, they'd finish. They'd be like, and the Dow is down 35 points today. And before we go, don't forget, Almond Joys give you diabetes in 2 days. Like, you would just think it would be everywhere, Please
disregard Almond Joys from your daily life.
Hey, don't you imagine you would turn on the TV and just see people picketing Washington, like, stop Almond Joy? Like, They
already do that.
Well, it's just interesting how kids' minds work. Like, and what sounds like an amusing story then becomes, you know what I mean? Because somebody said it and thought, that's funny. So they told somebody else who thought, that's funny. And then the next thing you know, it's everywhere. But
yeah, definitely. So and I mean, the girl even thought she did too. Oh, she was set on it, and I was like, no, okay, like, yeah, I got to stop it.
Do you still know her?
Yeah, definitely.
No kidding.
Yeah, we're still good friends. That's for crazy. Sure. So
she's matured beyond believing that candy gives you diabetes in 2 days.
Yeah. She felt really bad. I was like, trust me, it wasn't you.
Did you go to the dance?
Yo, of course. Yeah. I said yes. Oh, of course.
I find it's best whenever women are kind to you to just say thank you. That's
yeah. 100%. I agree completely. With Almond Joy. You give them Almond Joy with it.
I have to be honest. If my wife approached me with candy, I would probably think I was sick and I didn't know it. And she was like, she felt bad. I'm not certain, but yeah. I guess at 16, it just seems nice. Well, so to get back to my question, at 16, not that I didn't enjoy our little offshoot there, but at 16, were you a party kid? Were you were you more like, still immature? Were you not like that? Like, what kind of a social person were you then?
Yeah, definitely. I was just a basketball kid. I was just into sports. I was playing basketball year round and absolutely loved it. And then I got diabetes. And my whole world kind of changed. Mm-hmm. So my maturity changed with it. So I wasn't in no way a mature kid or anything like that. And then getting diabetes right after kind of just put me into this whirlwind of trying to figure out who I was and what type of a person I was. And so I quit basketball the following season because I just could not figure out how to play basketball and have it work for me with diabetes. Okay. I would get super sick on the court. I'd get low, and my coach would have to take me out 5 minutes into the game, and I'd just be sitting there like, why am I even here? I don't understand why this is happening to me. So that threw me for a loop for sure. And that's when I started getting into partying, because 16 is kind of the age where in high school, they just start partying a little bit. So I started hanging out with the kids who were going out and, drinking, smoking, all that stuff. So I started hanging out with them. And that's where, I learned a lot from it for sure.
Well, so you were really focused on it's interesting because this is, I didn't know if you were going to say this or not, but it was what I was wondering. Like, so you were at an inflection point in your life, whether you realize it or not. And if you could have kept playing basketball, do you think that that meant enough to you that you would have avoided sort of that other stuff for a longer time? Or do you think you were always headed towards it? Is it hard to look back and know?
I think that I would have stuck with basketball, and it would have kind of, deterred me from doing that stuff as often as I had done it.
Mm-hmm.
So I think basketball definitely, just because you're there, you're practicing every day, you're at games at night, so there's not a lot of time for you to go, hang out at the river with your friends. So I think when I quit, I just had a lot more time on my hands where I was just like hanging out, always after school, just like, hey, let's go hang out at the river. So I definitely think that basketball kind of would have helped me, but I also do have that personality where I'm like, I want to experiment and, try these things as well.
Yeah. So you were really just kind of putting these other ideas on hold because you liked playing basketball so much.
Definitely. And I think at the time, basketball was like kind of just my saving grace, where I didn't care about anything else. When I was playing basketball, I loved it and didn't really need anything more.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I quit basketball, I didn't have that saving grace or didn't have anything like that to kind of help me out. And so that's when I went, experimenting with partying. And I remember my first time drinking after I got diabetes. And I remember I just was I was so sick. I think I was drinking orange juice and vodka, and I didn't know what I was doing. I was drinking a ton of sugary stuff and alcohol, and it was a scary time for sure.
Yeah.
Just because I just got completely sick and couldn't stop throwing up, and it was bad. But after, I was just like, I'm glad that I'm learning how to do this at the same time. So it was a weird transition.
Well, so in that scenario, you're hammered and you're driving your blood sugar high.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because, getting out of the hospital, they're teaching you stuff, but it didn't connect at all to me. So, probably I think a week or two later is when I was drinking, and, I was chasing with orange juice or drinking with orange juice or something like that. And so my blood sugar was spiking, and I just couldn't stop. Yeah, I just couldn't stop throwing up the whole night.
I have more questions about that, but I'm imagining that this last little segment, anybody who's listening who's in their teens right now is like, this is why my dad makes me practice the violin so much.
And if you play the violin, I am jealous.
Yeah, well, me too. But I'm just saying, like, just stay in your room and do that thing and don't talk to other people. Well, so I want to go to, you're saying that you went from not being a drinker to getting diagnosed, and 2 weeks later, by the way, you drank like an old lady in the 40s. It's funny. You're having vodka and orange juice.
It's whatever you can get your hands on when you're 16.
Yeah. When you were 17, did you move to a gimlet or?
Hopefully, I'm hoping I did.
Yeah. Well, so you don't know anything functionally about how to manage your diabetes, and are you rebelling? I mean, I don't think that. It seems unlikely to me, Patrick, I guess I should say, that you were like, oh, well, now that basketball's gone, I can move on to my secondary choice, drinking by the river. So I'm So I'm thinking that, by the way, I'm fairly sure this episode is going to be called Drinking by the River, unless you say something else.
No.
But like, do you think you were like drowning your sorrows? Do you think you were in a panic about the diabetes?
I think that it was, I think it was a multi-factor situation where, I had tried drinking before diabetes, but obviously, not worrying about the blood sugar was a little easier. And then when that happened, I had to really switch up how my thought process worked. But I definitely think it was, at the time, obviously, I didn't think I was drowning my sorrows or my anxieties about having this disease. But now looking back on it, I think it did have a bigger effect on my life for sure. But I also love to have fun, and I definitely loved trying new things. And I don't necessarily regret doing it, just because I learned so much, and I learned a lot about diabetes, even though it was a harder time. I was going through, the mimosa drinking and all that, but I definitely learned a lot through doing all that. So I wouldn't even say I necessarily regretted it, because I did have a lot of fun at the same time. But you definitely can say that I was kind of trying to not think about diabetes and rebel against what was happening with my body.
Yeah. No, I'm not judging you. I'm trying to understand how you get from one place to another. If you listen to the podcast with any regularity?
I've listened to a couple episodes for sure. Okay. Not a crazy amount, but definitely a couple.
Just because I don't, you might know that, like, I don't drink, so I don't understand but I don't have a judgment about it. I just don't understand like when you say have fun, I think of having fun and being coherent. Like,
yes,
so I recognize that that's not how everybody thinks about it. But I definitely understand that at that age, and then with all that pressure, did the pressure hit you in any other ways? Did your grades change? Did you start robbing banks? Is there anything else that happened?
I mean, I think that there's a pressure of being in high school when kids are starting to turn into that, like experimenting or partying phase, where I wanted to keep up with my friends. And at the same time, I really probably couldn't have as much as I tried, just because of diabetes. So I think there's always kind of pressures going on in high school where diabetes kind of holds you back. And I for sure was just fighting as much as I could not let that happen. But yeah, I really think that, like you said, yeah, obviously having fun sober is great too, but in high school, you just want to, be with the crowd almost, and keep trying different things and having fun like that. So I think that the pressures of that kind of threw me for a loop. And then my grades did start dwindling too. I don't know if that's just because I did not like high school at all, or diabetes kind of put me in that, but I definitely my grades started dropping a little bit, because basketball, you had to keep a certain GPA. And then once I was out of that, there's nothing really to stop me from going too low. So
you just kind of rolled with it then, and just went wherever it went.
I just rolled with it, and my mom helped me out a crazy amount. I think she's definitely one of the, I give her all the respect in the world for, I mean, I was going through diabetes, but she was going through diabetes too. And so I give her all the respect in the world, because she really, really pushed me to, keep my grades up and get me into college. And so shout out to her, because without her, I would not be where I am today, for sure.
You had a feeling like she threw a saddle on your back and rode you to college. She's like, now go over this way and do this and jump over that. And listen, not that children don't need that, somebody guiding them along the way. I have to say, I'm disappointed when I joked about you robbing a bank. One day someone's going to blurt something out on the podcast, and I'm just going to be like, oh my God, finally, like I was just like, would imagine if you're just like, I did knock over a couple of convenience stores, and
the diabetic Bonnie and Clyde.
I was out of my mind. I would point my insulin pump at them through my coat. Do you use a pump, or use MDI?
Yeah, I use the pump, and I'm loving it. I'm using the Medtronic pump, but I've heard the Dexcom. I definitely want to try to get into that, because I've heard some great things about that.
Yeah, it's very cool. It really is. But I'm happy you have something going. How long have you been on the pump? Was it recent, or have you been doing it for a long time?
Only a couple, I think probably a year now. is how long I've been on the pump. In high school, like I said, I was fighting as much as I could. They were trying to put me on the pump. I said, no, I'm not going to do that. I stuck with the insulin pens. And that probably didn't help my situation at times either, just losing them and, all that good stuff that comes with the insulin pens. So I actually just started using it last year and I absolutely love it.
Right. Well, yeah, I mean, you're older now. It's funny because for people who are, I can't think of their names, but there's these two guys that prank like local municipalities in California.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
I've seen that.
Right.
Yeah.
And because I'm aware of that, you're like, you have an accent too. Like you have like a California accent. So you, like when you popped on at first, I'm like, is this guy going to prank me?
Oh my goodness. I wish. Those guys are amazing.
Yeah, no, I know. But, and I'm never going to think of their name and I feel bad about that. But so you're saying, if I'm understanding correctly, you're saying that you resisted a pump or anything that would make you look different through high school.
I don't think make me look different. I think just like, because going from pens to a pump, your lifestyle changes up again. And I think I was fighting the lifestyle change just because that first time when I got diabetes and went to the pens, like that was a big enough lifestyle change for me to just be like, I'm good off anything else.
Yeah.
And so they were, because you have to go through training and you kind of have to test it out. And so I did a test run, like I think it was like a 3-day test run and of the pump. And I just was like, I am not gonna, I think that it popped out one night when I was sleeping. And I was like, yeah, I'm just not going to try this change that quickly.
You'd be surprised at how many people say that. I was, when I started recognizing that was a real driver for people, just the idea of like, I've already been through a new thing that I had to learn. I don't want to learn another new thing.
Yeah. So I mean, like when I was in school, I wouldn't care where I did my insulin, I'd do it in front of my friends. Okay. I'd let my friends do it if they're like, oh, can I see how this works? I'm like, sure, like, give me a shot. But it's exactly, you're right. It's the change. It's just a big change. And, I was trying to fight any of that I could for sure.
No, it's interesting to hear you say that because it's not my first inclination from the outside to think that it would be about the change. I would always think it would be about the hiding. But, and so the problem with MDI for you wasn't that you minded anybody seeing you inject. It was that you were literally losing the pens and stuff like that.
Yeah, I'd lose the pens or the needle would, break off or the cartridge would get jammed. So stuff like that.
just regular kid problems. Maybe if you were not handing them to everybody to jab you with, they would.
Yeah.
How many of your friends do you think ever got home and was like, I have an insulin pen in my bag. I wonder why this is here.
Oh man. I mean, I've had like, friends have a party and I accidentally leave my Lantus, my long lasting pen at their house somewhere. And, they're not supposed to have anybody over or anything like that. And all of a sudden they're finding a needle in their couch. They're like, what is this?
There was no one here, I promise.
Yeah, exactly. That was a hard one to explain for sure.
Well, how did you go right to college right after high school?
Yeah, I went to Sac State right after high school.
Okay.
So I didn't even move out my first couple years, which was kind of a nice transition. I wanted to go to SBCC, which is in Santa Barbara. Mm-hmm. And I am just so glad I didn't do that, especially with diabetes. I think it's a lot of partying and probably not the best idea for a diabetic.
Patrick, you would not have trusted yourself in that scenario?
I don't think so. I mean, even coming out of high school, I wasn't mature at all. Mm-hmm. I still was like, I want to go to a party school and I want to have fun. And again, my mom was like, let's get you into Sac State instead. And I think that really, really saved me for sure because, I was staying at home, I was saving money, which was amazing too. Like now that, I'm out of college and
you appreciate that.
lot more money saved. I'm just like so grateful for that. And then, but yeah, I mean, Santa Barbara would have just been a madhouse for sure. So
yeah. And nobody does the math on 4 years of college divided by monthly payments for, the foreseeable rest of your life future. It's nice not to owe people that money. That's for certain.
Yes.
Do you think your mom
great.
do you think your mom knew that staying home was the right thing for you?
I think that I don't know if it was staying home, but I think it was just going to a community college in a place known for partying. Like, it probably wasn't the best for me and where I was at in life. And again, I was still not even doing my pump yet, so I was still doing my insulin shots. So that that also didn't help. And I didn't even realize it till last year when I got my pump, like how amazing it is to know your blood sugar as often as you do.
Yeah. That's very
so
helpful.
It's crazy that I didn't do that.
In the years prior to that, how was your care? Like, where were your A1Cs falling?
They were falling between 6 and 7. They were pretty good. But I think it also was from me getting, super high and then taking a lot of insulin to get super low.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of just the highs and lows that balanced it out. So I'm not sure if that,
that's
a good
cheating,
thing.
Patrick. That doesn't count.
Yeah, I was gonna say I'm kind of just doing the median right now.
Yeah. It's like if on the week, like during the week, you were a murderer for hire, but on the weekends you volunteered at a homeless shelter. That's
yeah.
It doesn't.
I was doing good things on the weekends. I swear.
That does not equal a decent life.
Yes.
So what happens is it just throws the math off. So the test, you've got these crazy highs, which of course are not good for your body, at these crazy lows, which are dangerous and not good for your body, but it still throws off the test. And it's like, oh, look. And then you end up in the doctor's office. He's going, oh, you're between a 6 and a 7. You're doing terrific. And
exactly.
And not enough of them say, how did we get to this? And they don't talk enough about limiting that variability and how important that is for overall health. I think that's it can't be said enough. It's a very common misconception that if the number's okay, quote unquote okay, then you must be doing everything as well as possible. Yeah. So I'm assuming you're wearing like the 670, maybe the Medtronic.
Yes. I'm wearing the 670 right now.
So you have the Guardian CGM?
I do.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so now you get to see what happens. Did that change the way you were living or using insulin?
I think that, the funny part was when I first started, I didn't realize how many doorways that I hit when I walked around the house, because I was hitting doorways and my sensor was popping off every 2 days. I was having to change it. So I'm glad I'm not a klutz anymore and hitting so many things, but it definitely has just made me more aware of my health and my body, and just like how seriously I do need to take diabetes. And it sucks that it took so long, but at the same time, I don't think I would have ever been able. My mindset wouldn't have changed at all. I think it was just kind of growing in maturity and seeing how diabetes really is, to where the pump just made me like so grateful that I was like, oh, okay, I need to start focusing on this and making sure that I'm, doing stuff that are healthy for my body. Cause, especially with friends, like, friends will go out and we'll eat or do all that, and they don't have a care in the world. And I'm like, I need to, sit down and really, really make sure my health is on point. So later on in life, I can still do these things.
Yeah, no kidding. It's so interesting to hear. Patrick, please don't take this the wrong way, but it's
go for it.
Right, ready? It's so interesting to hear someone who sounds like they're in Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure have a really thoughtful life idea.
What's funny is no one in California, I'm from Sacramento, so we're not a beach town at all.
Right.
And so no one in California would ever say I sound like a Californian.
No, 100%. And trust me, I'm mispronouncing 1,000 words in your eyes and everything. And I get that, but it's just, for me, it's fascinating. It's like, I don't know. It's sort of like the Big Lebowski. Like, you're like, there's a guy on a couch, like, with a drink in his hand, who's been high all day, saying something profound about life. And you're like, it's interesting.
Well, I'll take the Big Lebowski. I'll take it. I love that.
So it just because what you said, I found to be moving, honestly, and really thoughtful. And I'm glad you came to it in your mid-20s for certain. And it makes me worried about people who don't come to it as quickly or never do, but still, it's excellent. Do you credit, I think I heard you credit just being more mature, like, through there. So it wasn't like, so you're like, were you in that situation where, like, you knew you got high and you knew you got low, but the A1C was fine. So you're like, I'm all right. And then you get a little older and realize maybe I need to be more careful about this.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think when I was younger, I didn't feel my body, going through such like stress of a high blood sugar or low blood sugar.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't like now, when I have a high blood sugar, my heart is beating super fast and I'm getting all the symptoms. And I don't think I really don't think that I focused on that when I was younger, and so it didn't seem like a big deal at the time, if that made sense.
It does.
So it didn't seem like, it didn't seem like my body was going through anything. It just felt like, I need to get lower. So let's just put some insulin in and let's do whatever I need to do. But now it's like, okay, let's make sure I don't get high.
Yeah.
And let's check my blood, as much as I can to make sure that it's good. So
yeah, it feels like the difference between heading out to sea in a boat with a hole in it and then just spending all your time bailing it out versus fixing the hole before you leave.
Yes, 100%.
Yeah, a little bit of pre-planning. Patrick, I want to get your input on this real quick. I'll give you a producer credit on this one. Do you like better Patrick and Scott's Excellent Adventure or Scott and Patrick's Excellent Adventure for a title? I think your name first, right?
I don't know. Scott and Pat's Excellent Adventure sounds pretty amazing.
All right. Maybe that's what we do.
You came up with the name. You gotta get your name out there first.
Yeah, I don't know. Trust me, my name gets said enough. That's fine. I don't need that. People are going to be like, oh, now he's putting his name in the titles? An ass.
Yeah. Yeah, he's all over the place.
Yeah, I have to say, you're an interesting person to tell this to. So once in a while, I'll just because you've listened, but not a whole lot. Once in a while, I'll get notes and I'll be like, "You talk way more than the guests." And I put out a transcript of the show now. So like, if you go to the website, you can find a written transcript of the show, and it tells me how much I speak versus how much the other person speaks. And I don't talk that much more than the guests, by the way.
You had to make sure that you had to put some stats down to prove it.
Patrick, I've been dying to be able to say this in an episode somewhere because I told my wife, I was like, it turns out it's 60-40. And that makes sense because I'm asking the questions, right? So it's not like I get these notes like when I read them, I'm like, what am I talking like 85% of the time or something? But it's not that. I just have a commanding presence. You just remember me.
And now you got the evidence for it too.
Damn right. I'm going to start publishing it can you imagine if every week on like social media, you just send me, I just send out a percentage, episode 485, 61 and 4.
6139.
That'd be amazing.
I think you got to do it. Do it with this one at least.
Well, yeah. Isn't it funny too when you say 6139? You're like, see, he talks too much. But if I would have said 5941, you'd be like, oh, it feels pretty balanced.
Exactly.
That's how your brain works.
I was gonna say more 50-50 at this point.
Well,
no, I'm kidding.
Let me be honest. It's never 50-50. But although that's not true, there are some where actually I'm on the low side, and the other person speaks way more than I do. But that's not the point. My point is, stop sending me mean emails. The podcast. Podcast is free. Shut up.
The podcast is free.
Yeah, I mean, come on.
You got to send them a juice box if they send me an email.
Dude, I get complaints sometimes would make you think somebody paid like 10 grand for this. Like, you know?
Oh, no.
I'm like, what's up, man? Like, you're not making payments. Like, relax.
Yeah, I didn't even know you could get complaints for this. Yeah. I mean, come on.
Well, you would think, right? Anyway. So what did you go to, like, you don't have to tell me exactly what you do, but like, what kind of work do you do? What did you go to college for? Gvoke HypoPen has no visible needle and is the first pre-mixed auto-injector of glucagon for very low blood sugar in adults and kids with diabetes, ages 2 and above. Not only is Gvoke HypoPen simple to administer, but it's simple to learn more about. All you have to do is go to gvokeglucagon.com/juicebox. Gvoke shouldn't be used in patients with insulinoma or pheochromocytoma. Visit gvokeglucagon.com/risk. Hey, you live in Florida? Get those tickets for the Dancing for Diabetes show. Come on. Head to touchedbytype1.org/juicebox. Plunk down your hard-earned cash, support a wonderful organization, see a bunch of great dancing. I would show up and dance, but my leotard is at the cleaners.
I went to college in communications because I really didn't know what I wanted to do. Mm-hmm. So I went to college for that and started working in government and absolutely loved it. So I worked in, the governor's office and city hall, and then worked on a campaign right after college and thought, this is a pretty nice career that I'm starting to kind of create for myself. Mm-hmm. And then the pandemic hit, and I did a presidential campaign, and it ended when the pandemic hit. And then I was kind of just jobless for a little bit, working at a bar in Sacramento, and then switched it up and said, you know what, I'm moving to San Francisco and starting a job in tech sales. So that's where I'm at now. Is actually I moved to San Francisco a couple months ago, and now I'm in tech sales.
Isn't it amazing that you went from working towards getting a person elected for president to a bar? It's fascinating. Like when you said that, you just made every parent in the world scared for their child. They were like,
yeah, right.
Wait, what happened? Say it again. But that's cool. So you just kind of reframed yourself, took your skills and put them somewhere else.
Yeah. Well, I mean, also I should say that I worked at the bar previously too. It was, it wasn't place. Just because of the pandemic, but yes, it is. It was a crazy switch from going, working 80 hours a week to working at the bar.
I have to be honest with you. After the first 15 minutes of the show, you didn't shock me when you said you worked at a bar.
Yeah.
I wasn't like, oh my gosh, I didn't see that coming.
I know. I loved it though. It's super fun. Talk about complaints though, for sure.
Well, I hear from people who work at restaurants that it's just a big orgy between the people that work there. They just hop from person to person. Apparently, that's why we closed the restaurants down during COVID, not because of the.
There's a lot of spreading of it during that time. Yeah.
You didn't realize when they closed your restaurant, it wasn't because of the transmission. It was because they couldn't count on the employees to stay away from each other. Anyway, that might not be true. Or a lot of people who work at restaurants right now are nodding along going, oh, yeah, that's definitely true.
They're like, yeah.
It's the weird schedule. And then at the end of the night, you're all just sort of alone and the rest of the world doesn't exist. And so that's your pool of people then.
Oh yeah. I mean, working at I worked at a beer house. So we actually closed at, 10 or 11 at latest. So, I mean, I can't imagine what the bars opening or closing at 2 a.m. was like with, spreading like that. Cause that's a whole other story right there.
Did you ever find yourself at the end of the night going home with a lady much older than you?
No, never.
Good. Because it would be awkward if somebody like in the middle of something was like, Patrick, I think I know your mom.
Yeah, right.
No, you don't. I gotta go.
Yeah. That was the age range of the bar for sure too. So you weren't too far off.
That's what I was gleaning from what you were saying. That's amazing. I don't know what the hell we've been talking about for the last 40 minutes, but I'm having a good time. So
me too.
It's a good sign. What about A1Cs now with the pump and stability? Do you have the same highs and lows? And if not, how are you managing that?
Yeah, so I am managing it a little better. I mean, like my first month or two, I mean, maybe even, half a year into wearing the pump, I would still get pretty bad highs and lows, just because I was trying to figure out how the whole thing worked.
Mm-hmm.
And so after, after one time, I was just so pissed off with how Medtronic worked. I called up one of the Medtronic reps and I was like, "Hey, can I get a training on this? Maybe I'm doing something wrong." So she took me through, I think like an hour and a half training of it, and it really helped me just to the minute details that kind of help you with your blood sugar and everything like that.
Mm-hmm.
So it really helped me. And now I'm getting better at, I think I barely get over 250 if I get high, which is amazing.
Yeah.
And then don't get low too much, but I work out like 6 days a week. So lows do happen to me quite a bit just because I am, doing a lot of workout, but I always have Almond Joys next to me.
Well, since you found out they're safe, it's fine. Hey, can I propose something to you that you had no idea that I was going to say this, and so if it's not something you're interested in, please just tell me to shut up. But there's a series within the podcast, and it's called Diabetes Pro Tip. So I think there's about 20 or so episodes, and if I told you, I think if you listen to them, you might never see a 250 blood sugar again in your life or get low while you're working out. Could I interest you in listening to them?
Of course.
All right.
Of course. I'm looking it up right now. I got it on Google right away.
Look at you. Look at how the young kids use the interwebs. Right? So if you can go to juiceboxpodcast.com and click on Diabetes Pro Tip at the top, or actually diabetesprotip.com will take you to it as well. So now these episodes are available in your podcast player, but you can see them here online, and some people even choose to listen to them online. Although, just know if you're doing that, you're probably old. And but there's nothing wrong with being old. I'm old. So it starts at episode 210, and they're not concurrent. So like it'll be like 210, 11, 212, and it'll jump to 217. But it'll take you through the ideas that management wise get talked about on the podcast. And it's not just me. It's a friend of mine, Jenny. She has she's coming up on her 33rd anniversary of her type 1. She's a CDE. She's a nutritionist. She's a runner. And she talks to people about management for a living. So I will tell you that I think if you listen through those episodes, you achieve an A1C in the low 6s that will eventually get into the 5s. And you'll cut down on your highs and your lows.
I love it. Yeah, I'll definitely listen to those.
I'm
Thank
interested.
you.
No, don't thank me. I'm interested. Like, don't thank me, because then I want you to contact me back and tell me how it went. So
how it is. Okay.
Yeah, because you seem like you're in the right place. So Pat, you don't know this, but I talk to a lot of people, not just on the podcast, but separately, and you can start to see that people fall into lanes. And you're right there, ready to like take a big leap with your diabetes. Like, so I'll tell you that with my daughter's blood sugars, when you said like, if I ever go over 250, that never happens. And that's amazing. And I agree with you coming from where you are, but I will tell you that when my daughter's blood sugar gets over about 160, that constitutes a pretty big mistake.
Yeah, definitely.
So,
I mean, yeah, if I'm going up like 180, yeah, I'm already kind of getting nervous. But
no, but you were being honest with saying 250, which I really appreciate, because those are the real numbers. People need to hear that. They need to understand that they're not the only one whose blood sugar does that. And I'm not saying my daughter's never gets that high. Like sometimes we completely boot the pooch and stuff happens. I'm just saying that if you listen through this, I think you're going to find some easy to follow things that stop that from happening.
I love it.
And I
Yeah,
think you're the right person to
I'll
test it
definitely
on.
listen.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, I was gonna say I joined when I moved to San Francisco. There's a diabetic, like I don't think it's JDRF actually, but it's a diabetic group that meets on Zoom, every couple, like I think once a month,
Mm-hmm.
and we have a Slack channel where people can write in and talk about what's been going on with their blood sugars and if anyone has tips. So I joined that, and I do want to get more into it. I think that I'm kind of on the outskirts of kind of reading more about it and everything like that. So I definitely think stuff like this will for sure help.
It's it can't be undervalued that, first of all, talking to people is a huge thing, because you don't feel alone, first of all. Secondly, you start hearing things that you never heard before. Somebody will say something. I think that's what the podcast does. Like, somebody says something and it makes people think, oh, I didn't realize that was possible. And you try it and then it works and you build off of it. And I think that's terrific that you found those people.
Yeah, and I mean, like before I went into this group, I knew a couple of diabetics, but I didn't know a lot of them, and so seeing how serious some of these diabetics are in the group, and like how much they care for their health and well-being, like it really put things into perspective as well, because I wasn't talking to any diabetics who were like, super on top of their stuff and, talking about fats and proteins and ways to, like if you're going to eat this one day, how can you help counteract it? Stuff like that, where I've never really heard about that. So it was cool to kind of get a whole new perspective on how serious people take it. And that kind of put me into the mindset of like, okay, I need to step my game up a little bit.
Yeah. No, I think I can take for granted sometimes, because I'm so steeped in it, that this is something that everyone thinks about. But then I realize, from listening to people, getting communications from people, like, this is exactly what you said. Like, most times those things are never considered. And it makes a huge difference just to understand how to stretch out a bolus for a meal that has fat in it. Like, I have an episode going up that's just all about fat pretty soon. And
Wow.
I don't think that's stuff that people talk about enough. And I don't know why. I don't know if it's because overall it's not well understood, or if it seems confusing to people, so they don't want to just put it out there in a blanket way. And I think that, like, podcasts, or even like what you're talking about, like social media connections, allow for longer, deeper conversations, so that you can kind of get into the cracks and, hear the minutia, and it's not a paragraph of information in a pamphlet. Like, you can't explain any of this in a paragraph. So I think you need the conversation. Also, I just try to connect with you on LinkedIn, because for some reason I want to know how your life goes. So,
well, I hope we stay in touch too, because this is too fun, especially at 6 a.m.
I swear to God that you got up early and did this is amazing. Because but that is one of the indications to me that you see, you're interesting in that somebody just said to me the other day that they imagine that every person who's on the podcast is like kind of a super fan of the podcast. And I was like, no, that's not the case, but they couldn't believe me. And I want to ask you a little bit about that as we're kind of finishing up here. Like, so the podcast is not like a staple in your life. What made you want to come on and share the conversation?
I mean, I kind of was getting into podcasts, a year or two ago, and I was like, oh, I wonder if there are, diabetic podcasts, and if people really talk about it. And so I actually kind of just looked up diabetes on Spotify, and, the Juicebox podcast popped up, and I listened to a couple episodes, and I was like, oh, this is amazing. And I didn't even know that you would let someone like me onto it. Like, I didn't know how it worked or anything. So I just kind of was like, oh, maybe I'll just hit him up and see if he's interested. I didn't expect anything out of it, honestly. So it's pretty cool how it worked out.
It's like a date. Some of the emails they feel like as close as I'm ever going to get to being on a dating site, because it feels like a 4-sentence pitch about like why you would want to pick me. And I'm always amused by that. But what did you mean when you said somebody like me? Like when you listened to other people, did you think they were like special super diabetics?
Special super diabetics. Every diabetic is a special super diabetic. But I just thought they were kind of involved in the community and involved in, speaking about diabetes. And I've never been on the inside of the diabetic community life. I did intern for JDRF 1 year, and that was pretty fun to do. But other than that, I kind of was just like, oh, maybe I'll just shoot my shot and see if I can talk about diabetes a little.
Well, let me give you. I will pull the curtain back a tiny bit here. Hopefully, other people doing the same thing will not. Well, it doesn't matter. But what I was going to say is that I think there are people like who are in that center of that community that are amazing people. Like I'm definitely not saying that. But what I think is that when it becomes their whole life, they become a little practiced. And so I never talk to any of those people because like you did, like you were involved in politics. Like I don't want somebody popping on here, hearing 3 keywords and giving me a canned answer.
Yeah.
Right. Because then that's not interesting and nobody gets anything out of it. And I think more comes from listening to people's struggles and understanding their path than would come from somebody just telling you like, I'm super good at this and here's how I'm so good at it. And then it turns out they never really have any details. I also,
True, yeah.
You know what I mean? Like they never like, you know what I mean? Like, somebody's like, oh, I do great in the market, but they never say buy this stock, and this stock. They do great in the market, or you'll see people who are diabetes influencers will never mention what their A1C is.
Oh, interesting.
Right?
I'll start looking into that a little bit. I never noticed.
So when I share my daughter's A1C, it's not for bragging reasons. It's so that you can be reasonably comfortable that anything I said might be true. You know what I mean? Like, because if I was like, here's what I think you should do. You need to pre-bolus your meals, and I go through a little thing, and then you say, oh, that all sounds great, Scott. What's Arden's A1C? And I'm like, it's 9.8. And you might go, well, wait a minute. Why am I listening to you again? And
lost.
Yeah, like I think you have to show your work, I guess. And at the same time, I think that can be aspirational for people. Like I don't understand a person who says, hey, listen, if you're just running around yelling my A1C is 5.5, the rest of you can go to hell. That's bad. Okay. But if you're saying, hey, look, I'm 5.5, here's how I got to it. I think you can get to it too, even though you're not there right now. I find that to be hopeful. You know what I mean? Like when I don't know how to do something, I look to somebody who knows how to do it. Yeah.
And I think even like me 5 years ago, seeing an influencer saying, hey, my A1C is 5.5, but not saying anything of how to do it, it probably would have just made me be like, okay, well, like, I don't care anymore. I want to go, I'm going to keep fighting this. Like, if I don't understand how you're doing it, then I don't want to understand it myself.
Well, we're just to look up and go, oh, great. So you're going to be healthy and I don't get to be. Like, that's the vibe. Right. And I think you'll see, like, if you try those pro tip episodes, I'd be surprised if you didn't really like them just based on this conversation. So
no, I definitely will. Yeah. 100%.
I'm interested. So what you do is you listen to them. You don't have to report back to me. It's not like school. And an A1C from now, reach out and tell me if you're moving in a different direction.
Okay, I definitely will.
That's what
I can't wait.
I'm seriously, I'm interested. Don't let me down on this, Pat. Just send the email. Okay?
Okay, I will.
Don't treat me like
100%.
Don't treat me like those old women at the bar. Okay. Just ignore me. I know what you were doing there.
I'll send you a beer while you're at it too, while you're waiting.
Yeah. Is this probably how you make friends? You just send a beer down the bar, right? And everybody's then it's a good guy. Oh my gosh. So what are your I'm going to finish up here for you. I don't want to keep you too long. I imagine you have work. But what are your long-term goals here around diabetes? Like, where are you trying to Like what do you imagine is I guess my question would be, where do you imagine yourself to be when you're 30 years old, when you're thinking about maybe having a family? Like where do you want to be with your diabetes at that point?
Oh, I definitely just I wanna be as healthy as possible. I think that's kind of just my main goal, is to keep my body as healthy as possible, to just keep me going as long as I can.
Yeah.
I remember, growing through this, like you hear about diabetics going blind, or, toes getting cut off and all that. And so that always kind of, scared me a little bit. And so I'm like, I want to be as healthy as possible and be, I hope to be playing basketball with my grandkids and my great grandkids one day. So that's kind of where I want to be. And that's why I'm doing all this, to make sure that it will happen.
That's excellent. Hey, can I ask you, did you experience did women treat you differently because you had diabetes? Did that ever get in the way of your dating or anything?
No, I mean, I think that women were intrigued by it, if anything. So I don't think it ever, I mean, obviously there were problems with having low blood sugars at inopportune times, but I think a lot of women were intrigued by it. So it never was too big of a deal, but I can definitely see how it can, for other diabetics, it can definitely be kind of challenging. So I kind of catered it towards, like, hey, this is kind of interesting. And like, hey, have you ever seen someone get shot with a needle? It's pretty cool, that type of stuff.
Pat's like a 7-year-old with a Tonka truck. He's like, look, I have this and you can play with it too. So
yeah.
Trying to suck people into your world. Well, you also, sounds like you bumped into good people who weren't judging you just like that.
Yes, definitely. Yeah. I was very lucky, and for the people who did, I just kind of brushed it off. Not a big deal to me. So I was definitely lucky with the people that are in my life right now, and how they help me as well.
That's amazing. Good for you. Hey, listen, you sound like you're doing really well. Do you think of yourself as doing well?
Yes, definitely. I think once I got the pump, and I think that it kind of just propelled me into a way better state, for sure. So
cool.
Yeah, but the older I get, the more knowledge I'm getting. I just love it even more, and love how I'm dealing with it, for sure.
Listen, it sounds to me like you are on the upswing of a much bigger upswing, and seriously, like it feels like you. In a fairly short amount of time, got through that period, figured it out that it's something you wanted to leave behind. You're on an incredible path, and you're thoughtful about it, and you're interested in learning more. And I will tell you that everyone I've ever spoken to, I think the main ingredient that helps with this is just the desire to do it. That really ends up being one of the most important aspects, because you need to find the tools, you need to understand how to use them. But the desire to do it and a good attitude is a lot of it. I just think that from my personal experience talking to so many people. So I think you've got that.
Well, I love to hear it. Yeah. I mean, I think you're absolutely right. I remember coming back from, I studied abroad in Italy, and I must have gained 20 pounds over there, eating pasta and drinking wine all day, so I gained 20 pounds, and I came back, and I just kind of got myself off the couch and was like, I need to work out every day. I need to just do it.
Yeah.
And so I started working out, and that kind of propelled me into okay, I need to do it. Like I need to learn more about diabetes. I need to get healthier. So that kind of sent me on the track of getting to where I'm at, for sure.
It's amazing. Is there anything that I didn't say or ask that you were hoping to talk about?
No, I really didn't know what we were going to be talking about. I just kind of was like, let's do it. Let's just do it.
Did it feel like it went okay for you?
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
I loved it.
I'm amazing.
I love talking to you.
No, I'm just kidding. But yeah, no, I appreciate I had a really good time talking to you. I somehow find myself hoping that my son's as together as you are when he's 26. So and
he'll be more together for sure.
If I can keep him off the wine and pasta, maybe it'll be all right.
Yeah. Don't send him to Italy.
Yeah. A huge thank you to one of today's sponsors, Gvoke Glucagon. Find out more about Gvoke HypoPen at gvokeglucagon.com/juicebox. You spell that GVOKEGLUCAGON.com/juicebox. Thanks also to Patrick for sharing his story, and to Touched by Type 1 for supporting this episode of the Juicebox Podcast. Head on over right now to touchedbytype1.org. Find out more about Touched by Type 1 and think about getting some tickets to the Dancing for Diabetes show. Thanks so much for listening. I'll be back very soon with another episode of the Juicebox Podcast.